Hey guys, and welcome to episode 12 on how to make a survival game using Unity's Unet system. So if you watched episode 11 in its entirety, congratulations. Thank you for enduring. It's a long process, but it's an integral part of a game if you wanted it to be. But if you didn't watch it, no worries. We'll get straight into this one. In this video we'll be introducing the crafting system, and if we get time, do the hotbar system. So let's get started. So in our assets, go to scripts, and we want to create, let's go to our inventory, craft hotbar folder in our scripts folder and create a new script, and this is going to be the crafting system. Open that up. So just like the inventory system, we're going to start it off with a couple boxes, and we need a X and a Y. So here we'll say slot X, slot Y. So just like the inventory system, we want to draw our craft slots. So we create a function here, and we say for slots Y, and instead of the I will have Y's, and another one, and this is going to be the X. Oops, X, and I broke it. Stop. And another one, and this will be the X, slot X. And actually open up your inventory system, because it's basically the same thing. So let's just go ahead and copy this all of this from here, from the event, and just copy it all down to everything within this function, and just paste it right here and change it where we need to. So we can take this out, and we obviously need to change the position of where we want our crafting system. So for here we'll say x.y, so we'll have the same starting point, but we'll just move it a bit to the left initially. So we'll say 600. We'll move it to the right by 600 units, and here we'll add 34, so it goes about 34 down, and we'll keep these the same, and we'll rename this. So to rename, of course, let's create a list here. So we'll create a list of items again. So this is going to look very similar to the inventory system, but it's going to have unique properties within it. So as I mentioned in the inventory video, these could be basically in the same system, but separating them can also be a good. So here in this, we'll say this list of items is craft slots, and this is going to be equal to new list of items. And down here we'll just copy this, and wherever we see slots, we'll just paste our craft slots. And also for the inventory system, inventory, 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 inventory. Cool. So I think, and here as well. And now we're obviously gonna need a new thing here. So we'll need a boolean and craft dragging item and an item for the dragged item, so craft dragged item. So change this here, 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 false. Okay, and for the craft dragged item, oops, I'll have to go back and do that. Dragged item, and we need to change here. So now we have a couple more errors. Easy enough. Oops, forgot to change that. Easy enough. Previous index was just an integer, so we'll just say prev. What do we name it? Previous index. Cool. And we'll get back to these later on, and we'll just comment these out for now. And let's go back to, no, we'll say on, because again, like the inventory system, we're using the GUI system instead of the UI system. So to call an on GUI, or a GUI function, or GUI principles, or what's the word? The GUI items. I'm lost for words, sorry guys. To use it, we have to call it from an on GUI. So if boolean show craft system, and then we'll draw the craft slots there. Okay, we can go back to our game. To test it, we have to where did we put it? Oops, wrong. Prefabs player. Did we put the inventory here? No, we did not. I think we put it on the player HUD system. Nope, I was wrong again. And here we just have to say default. We'll just say default is true for now for testing purposes. And now we can go ahead and test it. And before we do that, we have to put it on the prefab player HUD. Yeah, let's just put it right here. We'll say crafting system there, and say 3 on the X, 3 on the Y. And to test this, I don't think we're going to use the lobby system because it's not fully, it's not pretty to use, it's not functional, it takes time. To do this, we'll just say go to the main menu level and drag in our network manager from our prefabs that we stored early on, and we can just go ahead and play. Actually, so before we test this, I just realized we can drag the crafting system onto the UI system. So let's just remove it here, and here we'll say crafting system 3 and 3, and let's go ahead and play. And we're already getting argument out of range. Oh, that's exactly right. We're not actually ready to test. So go back to your script, and we have to remember to, because we have no craft slots, so it's going to increment through all the craft slots and not going to find any. So we have to, like we did in the inventory system, initialize the amount of items you want to it be in the crafting slots. So this is pretty easy. Go through a for loop, and then here we'll say slot X times slot Y. So we'll have the row count and the column count, and then we just say crafting slots dot add new item. And of course, now it's ready for testing. So if we go back to our game here, clear this and start up, disable host, and don't worry about these errors here. These are about the not spawning correctly, but that's alright. You can see in the top right we have our crafting system, and as you can notice, I had to drag over because it doesn't fit in the screen properly. We're going to be doing something about that later on. We'll have to be using screen heights and screen width and doing a couple calculations there. But no matter, we can do it. I know we can do it. So we can go back to our scripts here. And for testing purposes, we need to have an add item thing. So to do here, we just say, I'm not feeling it tonight, so let's just use inventory system here. Just copy and paste it. These are basically the same base core functions of each other. We add craft item and not inventory count, craft slots count, craft slots, and we need to get the database here as well. So here, item database, and in the start function, let's just do it here, equals find object of type item database. So performance wise, this isn't the best way to go. No, just one object. Yeah, performance wise, this is not the best way to go, because it's going through a lot of objects and finding an object that has this on it. But anyway, we have our add craft slots here, and now we have to go ahead and check what items are currently in the craft slots, so we know what items can be built from this. So in here, every time we add an item, we'll say call of functions contains, or craft slots contains, and we'll generate this method. And so here we want to have two lists up here to store this information, because it's a global information. We want to be calling it from other methods, and other places in our scripts. So if it's a local variable, we can't do it here, so we have to create lists here. And the first list is going to be a list of integers. This is going to be the ID of the item in the craft system. So for each item has its own ID, and we're going to keep track of the IDs, and we're going to compare these ID numbers to a recipe of some sort and check if the recipe ingredients match the IDs within the craft system. So this is going to be, we'll say, the craft item IDs equals a new list of integers. Oops. And we want to have a list of items, and this is going to be the list of all the possible items in our craft system that are able to be made from all the IDs within the craft system. So we can go back to our script here, and we're going to start it off by each time this is called. So every time it's called whenever we add an item, or whenever we're going to craft an item, that's later on. So each time we add an item or craft an item, we want to clear the list and check again. So craft item ID dot clear, and we want to say the possible items dot clear. So we want to clear the list ready to check again what are in the items now. Okay, so we want to go through all the craft slot items. So I craft slots dot count, and we want to say if the craft slots I dot, we'll just say item name is not equal to null, we want to add it to our craft slots ID. But I'm just thinking, what if we have multiple of an item? I'm not talking about like 5 swords. I'm talking about if we have, let's say, 5 iron ores or whatever. We have to take into account the amount of an item, but we don't already have we don't have a way of tracking the amount of an item because we don't have it in our item database or item class. So let's go ahead and open that up. So here we're going to say add another field, and we're going to say amount. So we're going to have an integer and the amount of an object, and we're only going to have it for items that are we're going to need another slot. Here we're going to say public int stackable. So we're going to check if it's stackable, then we can have a certain amounts for that, and I'll go through that when we incorporate that into our inventory system. So here we'll say boolean stackable and integer amount. This amount down here we say stackable is equal to stackable, amount is equal to amount. and we have to go into our database, and we're going to have an error here. And no, let's have this here in this category, and have that here. And we go to our item database, and we'll have an error here, and the errors being we don't have enough arguments for it, and we need to include if it's stackable, which is true, and the amount will be default of 1. So now we can go to back to our crafting system and say so we go back and say, alright, we have an item. Now we have to check how many of that item we have and add it to our crafting item ID separately. If we didn't have it, this for loop will only be adding it once, even though we'll have, let's say we have 10 ingots and we don't have this for loop. It's only going to account for 1, which we don't want that. We want to account for everything. So here we just go through the craft system, so i.amount, and here we say craft system IDs dot add craft slots dot item ID. So we want to add them separately. So without so if it was just here and this wasn't the case, it'll only be adding it once, but nope, we want to add it as many times as that amount is there. And we want to use let's just make it U or A for amount A. So now that we have all the item IDs or the item IDs within our crafting system, we want to go ahead and compare those to something. Broad term, I know, but that something is going to be a blueprint. So for all plans, we could call it recipes, really. Yeah, we'll call it recipes. So for all the recipes in our game that we're going to have, we want to check whether or not our item IDs match those recipes, and if they do, then we add them to the possible items thing. So let's go ahead and create those recipes. So here we have to create a new script, and we'll call this one recipe. Or no, let's say item recipe, because we might have, we'll keep it item recipe for now. Item recipe, open that up, and we can go ahead and remove no, let's keep it, we'll remove them later. So here, we're doing basically what we did in the item script. We want to create our own class, and this class is going to contain a public list of integers. So this is the integers we're going to be comparing to the other integers. So this is going to be a couple IDs. So this recipe is going to need 3 cups of this ID and 1 tablespoon of the other ID. and you have to sprinkle on some ID3. So if you know what I'm saying here, so if we go to a paint, say we have a list here, and we have a shopping, we have a shopping, what would you call this, a shopping aisle, racks. So these are going to have a list of a couple things on them, and I'm not going to draw them all, but so these are going to have a couple items on them, and you're going to be following a recipe. List of ingredients to make this cake. This is so bad. And little flames. So this is the final product, and this is the list of ingredients. So to make a cake, you need flour, egg, I think butter. Alright, and the fourth ingredient will be sprinkles. So you're going to be checking if this stack, so we'll say this whole supermarket's just one big stack. So you're going to be checking if you're going to be checking if this stack contains flour. So they will say this one's flour, and you need 3 eggs. So this is 1 egg, this is 2 eggs, this is 3 eggs, and let's say this is 3. So now you're going to say, yep, we got these 3 eggs and 1 butter. This is going to be the butter, and you got sprinkles down here. Tick. So yep, you got all the ingredients, and now you can make this item. So that's the basis of our crafting system. But instead of using flour, we're going to be using the ID, which let's say this is 2, this is a 4, this is 16, this is 17, and we need 3 4s. So let's say this is labeled as 4, this is labeled as 4, this is labeled as a 4, and this is 2, 16 and 17 down here, and it'll be like, yep, we got a 2, we got a 16, we have 3 4s, and down here we have a 17. Cool. So that's what the recipe is going to be following. So here we just say this list of ints are going to be ingredients equals to a new list of ints, and we want to say what are these ingredients going to make. So this is going to be an item and final item, and down here we just have to make it a thing we can work with. So here say item recipe, and it's going to take in a list of ints, and we just ingredients lowercase this time. Oh no, so this is capital I, this is lowercase I, and an item. And here we say this dot ingredients. We probably don't need this actually. Ingredients and final item is equal to the item. And just like we did with the items, we have to make a database of all the recipes in the world. So we're turning this recipe and we're turning it into a cookbook of recipes. The magnificent multiplayer survival game series using Unet system recipe book. So to turn it into a recipe book, we need to create a new database. So C# script, and we'll say item recipe book. I didn't plan on making this recipe book analogy, but I'm going with it now. So in the recipe book, again, just like the item database, we have to not require that. And sorry about that. Before I go with this, we aren't using mono behavior, and we have to say this is a system-wide serializable class. Cool, now we can use it here. So here we're going to say public list, and this is going to contain all the list of item recipes, and we say recipes equals new list of item recipes. And we need to get the item database because we have to the item database because we have to say what's the final item. So here we say database equals find game object of type item database, and here we just say recipes dot add new item recipe, and now we need to say the list of ingredients. To say the list of ingredients as an int, we have to say we are creating a new list of ints, and here is where it gets interesting. We want to say a new int array. So this here I'll do an example here. List, so this is just saying the list of integers, and int example, and my bad, don't ban me, int x equals new list of ints, and here you can fit in an array. So here no, they don't show me, but you can say here new so up here we'll say int. So this is an example to show what we're doing within this one line. So here we'll say int equals a new equals equals we'll say this is equal to new int array of 3, 4, and 5, and we'll say this is 3. No, not 3. No, what am I doing here? So, and we'll just say this is equal to a new int array of 5 units, and we just in here we'll say ints, and it's and we'll say this is equal to new equals new int array, and we'll say 2 3 5, and we'll close that off, and we'll say the capacity of this list is going to be no, and I just realized you can't do it here. No, this is not the proper example. Let's just take this and let's see what happens when we put this here and it works. Okay, so this is basically just doing what's up here, and instead of an int array, we're saying it is going to be a int array of 2 3 and 5. So this is probably not the best example because this is not very commonly used, but we can go ahead and delete that and continue on with our process down here. So we're going to say this list is going to be a new list of integers that is going to contain a list of IDs, and we only have 2 items. So we have to quickly add more. So I'm going to add and jump forward and just add a couple random items to the item database.
A few moments later.
So I went ahead and added a few more items, and added a extra section here for the items, and just included a item type. So you could have a million of these, any variation of how you want your items to be. So you can just have a public item and just filter in its name, and that's all you care about. That's fine. So now I just have a couple more items to work with: a mushroom, a piece of wood, a plank, which is different from wood, you'd assume, but it can also be the same thing. So a plank can be wood. All planks are wood, but not all wood are planks. Yes. So, and we have a big stick, a piece of string, and another item or equipment I have here, and some steel ingots. Cool. So now we have some variations to work with. So we can go back to our recipe book and start creating our recipes. So let's just keep it simple. So in our items, we'll say 1 piece of wood and a steel ingot creates a saw. So what we're going to have to do here is we have to say 3 and an 8. So 3, 8. And no, yeah, okay, we'll have that. and we'll create a even harder thing to make, which will be a sword, which will be a plank and 3 steel ingots. So we'll just copy this for now. Oops, let's finish it off here. We're not done with it, but we'll say, so a plank, which will be 4, and 3 steel ingots. So I'll be using that in an example in a bit. And now we have to say, what do these IDs create? So we have to comma this off, and we have to say what item it creates, which will be the database ID. Oops. Dot items, and there's probably a better way to do this. And we just say, because this was making what item a source, so it'll be so this ID would be 6 because it starts on 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 7. So it's basically just their ID. Yeah, no, this is probably the best way to do it. So again, down here we're creating a different item, and this item will be, oops, the wrong bracket. Here we're going to say this is going to be 0. I think that's what we were making, a sword. Close that off, and now we have 2 recipes to work with, which is excellent. So in our crafting system, we want to go through the recipe book. So up here we're gonna have to get reference to the recipe book. So recipe book, recipes, and down here again find object of type and recipe book. So we have to make sure we put this on a game object, and down here we have to, after we've looped through all the items and checked what is in the crafting system, we want to say this crafting system, we want to go through another for loop, and we want to go through the recipes dot recipes. Nope, we'll rename this to recipe book, apply recipe. So the recipes book, go through all the recipes, and we want to oops sorry. So we've got the recipe books, we want to go through the amount of recipes in there. So for each recipe we want to go check through all its stuff and check if it's craftable or not. So in each increment so there's a couple ways we can do this actually, but I think I'm gonna do the removal list technique. So instead of adding up, we're gonna be removing things. So instead of adding up, so instead of let's go here, instead of adding to the list from here, we're going to be removing them, and for each item there is, we're going to keep removing, and we have sprinkles, so we remove it. And if the recipe page is empty, seems pretty backwards, but when it's empty, we're going to be able to make the cake. so here we want to prep the removing list. So the list of integers, and we just call this list, and it's going to be a new list of ints, and we're going to sift in the recipe book dot recipes I, so the one we're over now, dot ingredients. So now we have the list of ingredients in that list. Now we want to check, okay, we have flour here, remove. We have eggs, remove. So now we have our list prepped, prepped and ready. Oops, I keep saving by habit. So now we have our list. So now we want to go through the craft IDs, and we have to change this to this K. Yep, craft IDs dot count, and if list, the list we just made up here, dot contains, so this is a function within the list, the system dot collection dot generic list holder, that it just simply goes through the list. If it finds the similar thing, then it comes up with a boolean true or false. So we want to say if it contains the craft system K, so this int, so if it contains this certain int, we want to go ahead and remove it from the list. So we want to say, okay, we want to remove this thing from the list. So if you have multiples of it, it only finds the first one, and then we remove it once. So here we have essentially egg, comma egg, comma egg. So this is because we need 3 eggs. Egg. Oops. So if we're checking whether or not it contains an egg, we say yep, it's there, so it removes this one only, and then it checks again if we need an egg. If it's there, it removes it, and so forth for each ingredient in there. And once we've looped through all the ingredients, we say if our list that we have dot count, so that if the page is empty, which will mean there are zero items in the list, then we want to say yep, add to the possible items this I dot final item. So once the page is empty, it adds it to the can do pile. So you have a pile here of cans and can't. So yep, this page is empty, so you put this page in the can pile, and if the list dot count is more than 1, then you add it to the can't pile, and you wait until those items are in the crafting system ready to be used. So now we have a crafting slot checker. So for now we need to actually no, let's just test this. So in the start function, we want to add craft item, and we want to add all the craft items. So say craft item 0, 1, 2, and so forth. And now we can go ahead and test it, and before we test it, as I said before, we have to go ahead and add the database here, which was the recipe book. And let's start and see what happens. Arguments out of range. I think the way to solve this would be in this function, so in the item database. So what is happening is this is for some reason being called before so for some reason, so what's happening is this is being called before the item database, which we don't want, because this is relying on the item database, and if the database is empty when this is called, because it's being called before the item database is set up, so it's called and it's empty, and we're assuming it's not empty when we use it. So to work around this, we could work around project settings script execution order, but instead I think a simpler way would just be, instead of on start, we say this void on so instead of this, we'll say this void on enabled. So instead of using the on start function, we'll say on void on enable, and we can go ahead and say this, because it's being called when it's enabled and not when the start methods are being called. So we're working around that, and that should solve our problem. So we're messing around with the script execution order of Unity itself, and hopefully that does the trick now. And there we go. We don't get the error because it's being called sometime else, being called before. So now you can see that we have our pretty little items in here, and I think this is planks and these are woods. And if we go to the UI system and go to our recipes, you're going to see that there are our recipes fully functional, and our items here, sword and the saw. And what I was trying to check here is whether or not it's showing the possible items, and to do that we just have to make it visible to us, which will be saying these two things are serializable fields, this one as well. Play again, and don't worry about these errors. These are because we're not properly starting the game. We're just testing here. So here, if we go to the craft system, this is the IDs, which is perfect. So if we go to our crafting system and go to the craft IDs, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're missing a 9th, right? It's not... We'll have to check why it's not seeing the 0 ID, which is weird. But if we go to the possible items, there should be only one item to be made here, because we only have one steel ingot and one piece of wood. But if we go ahead and go to the crafting system and add a couple more 8s, which are steel ingots, and we need 3 of them, yes. So now if we go again, start, and without entering the game, we just check here. Oops, that's why it's not working, guys. I'm so silly. That's why it's not working. So we're adding multiple items and it's not fitting them into the item slots because we aren't checking whether or not they are stackable. So we're gonna have to do this in the inventory as well, but we're gonna have to go through another for loop. We'll just add a new for loop. So here we want to go through if item to add is, and what is item to add. So item to add is going to be an item to add, and we're going to check in the database, fetch by ID, the ID that we sifted in here. So is this item stackable? And we have to check whether or not the crafting ID already has it in the inventory, in the crafting thing. And this is just a simple boolean craft system contains, and it's going to take in an item argument. Oops. And we just go through the crafts slots dot count, and if craft slots I dot equals the item that we sifted in, then we would want to return true because we have it in the we have it in our inventory system, and if we go through the whole for loop and we don't once return true, so we don't get here if we ever return true. So if we never return true on anything, we just want to say return false. We don't have it in the inventory in the crafting system. So here, where was I? Crafting system dot contains. This takes in the item, and we're just going to say the item to add. And so if the item is stackable and we already contain it in the inventory, then we want to do something, and we're basically doing what we did here. So we have to go through the craft slots, and if the ID is equal to the ID that we sifted in before, then so if we found the item that won. So we go through the items ID. So let's just create another one. So we got the items, and you go through it. No, that my item's not there, and we'll just say it's here. No, no, no. Hey, this is the item I was looking for. Now we found the item by its ID, and we want to say craft slots dot I dot amount. So we just want to add the amount, and then we want to break it off there. So we're just adding on. So this plus plus is just basically saying equals plus equals 1, but we're just saying plus. Easy enough. And we want to break it off there. We don't want to go any further, and we just say if it isn't stackable and the craft system doesn't contain it, then we want to do the other function. So if we go back to our crafting system, we should be getting, if we go to we made mistakes somewhere. Oh, I made a mistake, sorry guys. And for testing purposes, I'm gonna make this we're gonna make this serializable field as well to see what's actually happening. Check why aren't we adding items. So steel ingots, and the amount is 3. Very curious there. So why doesn't craft systems ID contain it? Oh, that's the problem. We're not calling the craft systems when we're adding amounts. So simple fix, we just call it up here. Now it should work. Now I'm 100% sure this is going to work. And there we go. We have 3 steel ingots, and we now have 2 possible items. So